Hi, I'm Cassandra and welcome back to the Oxford Weaving Studio YouTube channel. Today we're talking about Rya Knots and Rya Loops. Now this is a new weaving techniques video in our series of weaving techniques, and you're going to learn how to put your Rya Knots or Rya Loops in different ways on different shapes and forms. And the reason I'm showing them together is because they are very similar techniques and you can kind of interchange them. So let's get started. Hi, so thank you for joining me. I've got the table set up here with two different projects. We're going to finish off some of the Rya Loops on this circular art piece so I can show you what it looks like to do a continuous piece of continuous series of Rya Loops. And I'm going to set up my little mini frame loom here and show you Rya Knots as well. And it will depend on how many Rya Knots you want to make or how many Rya Loops. So if you want a whole bunch or just a few, the technique will depend on that. So now I'm going to show you how to do it on a circular ring. Truthfully, it's the same as doing it on a frame loom, except that if I point this one out, it depends on which way you do your loops, because if you can see here, I actually quite like the fact that it's covering quite a lot of this ring because it's a white ring set. And so if I turn this over, can you see how you have the knots and it looks a little different? So you might consider this the front of the way that you do the Rya Knots, but the way that I ended up doing them was this way, so it covers more of it. So that's a preference, and I'll show you what it looks like each way. So if you're working on a ring, the same way, we start with the same starting point where we fold over our thread, and I'm going to work this way around the left because I'm not quite finished this piece. So I'm just going to start, let's say I start here, grab my two ends, put my fingers in and pull that first one free. So you get your first knot that will end up being that way. So if you can see here, my natural way of working is so that I get my, when I work, I grab my yarn, and I have a natural way of working where the knot is actually on the other side. That for me works really, really nicely. But if you want to try and see what it looks like in the other direction, and that's flipping your work over, so we haven't tied the ends in yet. So if I was to flip my work over when I'm done, and again, same starting point, double up your thread, put your fingers through the loop underneath the frame and pull it through, releasing the first one so that it's tight, and then we're going to then get the length that you want. So that will depend on how big, how wide you want your piece to be in the proportion. So it's a design element. So I'm going to try and make this one a little bit longer than my previous one. And again, laying it across, under, pulling and working tight, and then pulling until you've got the right length for you. And again, laying it across, fingers in the middle, and pulling and tightening. So you just work your way around the ring. So it's the same thing, but it's actually in many ways easier on the circular ring because you just have a very obvious row to kind of work on. You're not working on vertical stripes, which when you compare the two, you know, it is a bit different because you're getting a fuller fringe here, and you know, the way it falls and sits on the warp is different depending on the direction that the type of knot that you choose. So if I do one more on this side just to fill it up, and then we can look from the front and see what that looks like. So if you can see here, if we were to tighten it, you can adjust it as you go, but then you're getting that same kind of flat knot. And this last one is a bit looser. There we go. So that's how you do it on the circular ring, and you would continue working all the way around. One comment to make, if you are working on a circular ring, it's much harder it's better to have a really long continuous piece. So I've only probably wrapped enough to do maybe a third of my ring. But if you want the same color and you want to continuously go around, I would suggest you create a tapestry bundle first. Again, like I said, there's a video for that you can check out. And that's because it just pulls off really easily and it doesn't tangle a really long end. But if you are changing yarns, it can be tricky. So you'll just have to knot it and start it again so that it looks consistent. just a bit of advice there. So I hope this helps you. There are different ways of doing it. So you start off with your cutting your Rya knots and measuring them out. If you're just doing a small amount, or you want a flat facing Rya knot, you can create Rya knots by creating first the Rya loops. And again, the Rya loops, it's different ways to do it so that it uses one individual work thread. You could actually use two if you wanted, but I've just done one so that the spacing remains consistent, and it gives you a much fuller, fuller fringe or fuller loops. And then to create the actual Rya knots, if you've created loops first, is simply just to go and cut them and trim them later on. So that's the way to weave lots of them on a continuous thread, and if you're wanting to weave them quicker. So thanks very much for joining me for this tutorial. I hope it's been helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please pop those in the box down below. And if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can, and follow me at Oxford Weaving Studio. Same on Facebook. And of course, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as I get more videos uploaded and keep going. Now that we're out of lockdown, I'm hoping I can be in the studio more regularly and keep filming videos. So if you like the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again. See you next time.